After a 10-year NHL career between Dallas, St. Louis, Tampa, and Arizona, Brandon Crombeen traded his seat in the locker room for a seat in the boardroom. Today, he's the president of Delos Canada, a company focused on health and wellness where we live, work, and travel. We will hear some of the highlights of his playing days, making the transition into business world, and what Delos is getting up to today. So growing up, was playing in the NHL always your dream? And at what age or what time did you realize that it might become a reality?
Yeah, I think I guess first, thanks for having me. And really, I think every young hockey player growing up in Canada, your dream and aspirations of playing professional hockey, but really never I guess focused on that or kind of made that the priority. It was just having fun competing and playing a game I loved. And I guess it was probably as I got to junior and then got drafted into the NHL that you realize there was probably that opportunity. I always joke that there's probably a lot of naivety in that, realizing that is, one very small step to actually accomplishing the goal of trying to play there. And there's a lot of work left to be done, but I was lucky enough to make that a reality, and obviously pretty thankful that I had that opportunity.
It's amazing. Good for you. Very special. And, when you look back, to say that you played 10 years in the National Hockey League. When you reflect on that today, is there one moment or one highlight that kind of stands out that says that was one of the peaks or the pinnacle of my NHL days?
Yeah, it's tough to kind of think of one exact moment. I think when you're playing, and it's there's kind of that saying that it's hard to get there, but it's harder to stay there. So especially as the type of player I was, it was never set in stone that I was going to be there, and you were constantly kind of working on improving and making sure that you were getting better every day and keeping your spot in that lineup and continuing to prove yourself day over day. So, it was kind of one of those things that you don't really reflect on it until it's all done. And once you do, you look back and are pretty proud and of what you're able to accomplish and lasting that long in the league. I mean, again, one of the things that I look back and probably cherish the most was lucky enough to play for the same organization that my dad did and wear the same number. That, again, I think that's something that I'll remember for a long time and be able to kind of tell my grandkids about that. It was a pretty unique and special experience to be able to play at the same organization, wear the same number as my dad in the NHL, and definitely something that I look back and cherish.
That's unreal. Yeah. Very few people can say that, especially with the dad. And just leading up to this was, looking up a little bit of background yourself, and, definitely wasn't shy of the hockey fight videos on there. I think the last one was you and Ryan Reeves going at it. And, like you said, easy to get there, hard to stay, but it looked like, with your role, you definitely fought and earned your way through the whole career. So congratulations. And that's awesome. And throughout the career, I mean, obviously hockey is always, the number one. But was business something that you were always interested in?
Yeah, it was, I always kind of give a lot of credit to my parents on that, it was my dad, as this noted, he was able to play professional hockey. And I think he was able to pass along, a lot of great knowledge, not only for hockey, but also kind of that transition after hockey, and having seen good friends, move into a very successful second career, and seeing good friends really struggle with that transition. So, I always joke that, my dad was always a great resource to talk to about hockey and life and what I was going to do and different things like that. And, it was always first, every time we spoke, how are things going? How are you doing? Kind of on a personal level. Second was, what are you doing to prepare for when hockey's done and what's next? And then third was, let's talk about hockey and how things are going. So he knew the importance and really kind of instilled that in me from a very young age that, hockey's great and you got to work very hard and stay focused on what you want to do there. But, you're one bad play away from an injury or something ending that, and you've got a whole life in front of you, even if you do have a very, very successful hockey career. So, continue to stay focused on getting your education and learning and understanding what you want to get into. So was very lucky that I kind of had that, constant nudge from my parents to keep pushing me down that path. And then, I mean, it's a long list of people that I met along the way and that helped me and supported me and kind of guided me and directed me to help, not only figure out what I wanted to get into, but what I was interested in, what I would need to do to be successful or to pursue those different career paths. So again, it was always something that I guess I had in the back of my mind. I always had an interest in it. The reality is I didn't really know or understand, like most 20 or 22 or 24-year-olds, what that world was like and what I wanted to get into, and was again lucky enough to have a good run with hockey, where it gave me time to kind of figure out what interests me, what I really wanted to get into, and try to work on some of the acquiring some of those skills that would be required to be successful in that.
I like the list of questions. How are you doing? What's life after hockey? And finally, how's hockey going? And no pressure if you have a son. Hey, no pressure to carry on the legacy. Same team, same number. The bar's been set. And with hockey players, generally the off season's filled with a lot of off ice training, skating, maybe some golf mixed in there. Did you do all those during the summer, and did you ever find some time to maybe intern or pick up a summer job?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the one thing I always, I guess when I'm talking to hockey players or guys that are kind of going through and trying to think through, that next step in their life is, I always prioritize, because obviously if you're going down that path, it takes a lot of sacrifice, a lot of commitment, and a lot of time to continue to push yourself to improve, whether that's on ice, off ice training, mental training, rest, recovery, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on. But with that, there's also a lot of downtime. So again, I always kind of make that joke when I talk to guys that, I never missed a card game. I never missed going out with the guys. It wasn't like I was just studying it in a book all the time and didn't get to experience what, a lot of the great things that come with being on a team and being part of a team. But it was just taking advantage of some of that downtime. And again, similarly, I tried to do that in the off season, where, again, I got very, very lucky that I met people that were open and understanding and willing and kind of to, I guess, help me out in a bit of a unique scenario where, it wasn't something that I was going to be able to come in from 8 to 6 every day and kind of live a normal life as a co-op student or an analyst. It was, I trained from 8 till 1 or 2, but I'm, every day in the afternoon, I'm free. I'm happy to come in and just kind of do whatever work you need me to do and learn and understand. So, I really probably spent the better part of 4 or 5 off seasons doing that, job shadowing people, even if it was, once a week, just to go and see and understand, what they did, what they liked about their job, what they didn't, what they would do differently if they were going at it again, and just really trying to narrow in on, what interested me and what I wanted to try to pursue when that career was over.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice to give to people playing in the game. Obviously, I not quite the career you had, but definitely played some professional hockey in my day. And at times it's easy to just get caught up of what you're doing, but to have that post-hockey career in the back of your mind and putting in some extra hours outside of the rink, outside of training into business is definitely something that I did in my last couple of years, but wish maybe a little bit earlier on. Didn't just have that one goal in mind and kind of had a bigger picture of life, but at least at some point could definitely do that. And with that being a pro athlete, it's a huge part of your identity, who you are, how you associate yourself. How was that transition from hockey into business? And maybe with the interning and shadowing, were you able to jump right into it?
Yeah, I mean, again, I was very, very lucky in that, my first job out of hockey was with Gradebook, who I'd spent, a handful of years kind of interning with. So it made that transition or kind of jumping in with both feet a little bit easier, in terms of I had a bit of a sense of what it was going to be like and what I was going to be doing and a bit of an understanding. And again, trying to spend a good part of those 4 or 5 years prior preparing and learning the skills needed. But again, like anything, it's a different world. It's a big jump and a big learning experience. But again, really just kind of embraced that and was excited about the opportunity. Was excited for a new challenge and really realized that as much as I thought I prepared, there was still a lot to learn and a lot to go through. And I mean, I don't think at any point in anyone's career you kind of say you hit your peak and there's nothing left to learn or nothing left to do. So I've always kind of embraced that mentality of continuing to grow and trying to evolve who you are as a person, and obviously as part of a team, whether that be in the business setting or sports setting. So again, really, kind of dove right into it, but quickly learned that there was a long way to go and a lot to continue to improve and get better at, and have enjoyed that process today.
I think, personally speaking, having brought on someone onto my team that's an ex-pro hockey player, I think a lot of maybe the traditional educational aspects that a university student might not have. A hockey player's got the work ethic, they've got the team aspect. There's a lot of characteristics that I think really translate over. And from your perspective, does Gradebook just recruit at the hockey rink? It seems like there's a lot of hockey players there. Like, how did you get connected in the world of Gradebook?
Yeah, it was. It's a pretty small world, and again, it was pretty interesting when I first met the few principals from Gradebook. I think they were a team of 4 or 5, so it was a pretty small operation. One of which who was a former professional hockey player, and again, that was really the connection of how I got introduced to that. He was a former professional hockey player that again had went into investment banking and then moved over to Gradebook, and again was, call it 5-10 years ahead of me, and had now established himself in a second career and was having some good success. So was lucky enough to get introduced to him. He had some great advice and was really able to kind of help direct me and guide me in terms of what I needed to do and who I could talk to and what steps I could take. So it was a bit of a running joke that there's all ex-professional hockey players there. Today, when you look at it, I think there are about 70. We're about 75 or 80 people, and there was three ex-hockey. So it's still a relatively small total number, but it is a bit of a running joke at times that there's a lot of ex-athletes or ex-hockey players. But to your point, that's something that I often speak about, and I know Sasha, who is the principal and CEO at Gradebook, that I got to know first, often kind of speaks about is those skills that you acquire playing any team sport. Not only you don't have to play at a professional level, but playing a team sport, you're taught very early discipline, time management, commitment, work ethic, teamwork, et cetera, that again are very, very valuable skills, and that's something I always speak to any athlete that I get the chance to speak to about it is kind of saying, look, you've got a very unique skill set that is very valuable in the workforce. Now, if you can take that and add the layer of education and experience and give yourself both sides of the coin, you can put yourself in a very good position and really set yourself up for success in a second career.
Yeah, glad to see that a lot of those attributes transitioned over. I hope for the benefit of all your other employees that you didn't transition the fighting and drop the gloves in the office yet. So hopefully that was left in the hockey. And we obviously are familiar with Gradebook, both of us. And but maybe for everyone here listening, can you just touch on who Gradebook is and maybe a high level of what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Gradebook, really at its core is a private equity company that really has a few different focuses, and the predominant focus for them and really the biggest aspect of their business on the day-to-day is partnering with large-scale developers on specific developments. So again, that was the side of the business that I was always involved in, was on the capital markets team within their real estate development operation. They do have a few other segments to their business and have invested in health and tech companies as well as a few other ventures. So again, a great group of people, again, as mentioned, started as a very small group and have continued to grow and have great leadership and a great group of people that's really driving the business forward.
Amazing. And you were with them for about 5 years, and then about a year and a half ago, you've transitioned over to Delos Canada. What is Delos Canada? What do you guys do over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Delos is, really at its core, the problem they were looking to solve was improving the health and well-being of the real estate we live, work, sleep, eat, play in. Again, really, obviously there's been heightened awareness around that given the world we've lived in with the last 2+ years with the pandemic, and really opening people's eyes to the health and well-being of the real estate that we spend so much time in, whether that's air quality, whether that's lighting, whether that's thermal acoustics, et cetera, et cetera. And what Delos has done is really, spent the first 5 years of its existence studying, understanding, and putting a lot of research and science behind the buildings that we spend so much time in and the effects it has on our health, and then trying to find solutions and ways to improve that real estate. So again, really, Delos as a whole, there's a few entities under that, one of which is called the International Well Building Institute. The Well Building Standard is a very well-known standard, again, speaking around the health and well-being attributes of the buildings, and has continued to grow globally. Really what we're doing here in Canada is bringing all of those attributes of Delos and the International Well Building Institute to the Canadian marketplace, and continuing to educate, a number of real estate owners, developers, businesses, etc., on how and what Delos can do to help improve those indoor environments.
And has health and wellness kind of been something you've always been really interested in, and maybe transitioning like from business, is that space something you wanted to get into, or did the cards kind of just align?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think I've obviously always had an interest in health and wellness. We kind of joke within the Delos team that, once you learn and understand the impacts that the buildings, the spaces that we spend so much time in, and impacts of bad air quality or bad water or bad lighting can have on your health, it's tough to unlearn. And again, I think it's something that a lot of people almost take for granted and assume that everything is safe and normal. But the reality is, in a lot of instances, it's, even in a great country like Canada, a lot of instances, those can have pretty material impacts on your health and well-being. So it's something that as you learn about more and more about, and you see the impacts of it, and you see the impacts and understand some of the solutions that can be brought forward, it continues to grow your passion about, getting that message out and continue to educate people on how and what can be done to get ahead of that before any of those issues come to realization.
And in terms of kind of awareness and education on this space right now, where is it at today, and kind of where do you see this in the future, and how has the whole COVID-19 pandemic come into play to, affect this in what I would assume would be a positive way?
Absolutely. I mean, it's you never wanted to see a pandemic be the reason that, people are starting to pay closer attention to it. But, I think for everyone's benefit, it has raised a greater awareness to the environments that we spend time into, and the impacts they can have on you from a health and well-being perspective. But again, I think it's still very, very early days in terms of, again, I think there's a multitude of factors that come into it. One from, again, just that general education and understanding and asking those questions around, the impacts of certain, again, water, air, light, et cetera, in the spaces that you're spending time in, and how those can be addressed. And then the second part of it is really, from a corporation or real estate ownership side, is around ESG reporting, and how that obviously is a continued area of focus, and something that, we really look to play a large part in, and think that it's at the very, very early stages of what will be, a large area of focus for many years to come.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hearing about it right now, it's obviously important, light, water, and we work in these spaces for so often. So just being educated, learning a bit more about it, it'll really be top of mind, I feel like, for a lot of companies and people looking to always improve health and wellness, especially these days. And with new developments, how will Delos be integrated into these type of projects?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's, one of the great, advantages of Delos is we've got, 10 plus years now of research and science to understand the built environment and the impacts it has on us. So, there's a long list of what can be done, like anything in terms of the, product solutions, way we can build buildings, different solutions that can be implemented. And again, I think a lot of that goes back to, what is that development core focus? What is it trying to deliver? Who are its tenants or residents, and how do we need to kind of solve for what some potential issues may be? So again, we really, Delos takes the position of relying on that research and science to understand what products and solutions we can bring forward to help create and maintain healthier buildings over the long term, and really work with each individual client on a case-by-case basis to understand what their needs are, who their target market is, and help identify what solutions need to be put in place and what can be put in place as extras or add-ons at later dates.
And with yourself being the president of Delos Canada, when you think back to some of the best coaches you've had or the best boss at Gradebook that you've had, what are some of the leadership characteristics that you're trying to emulate within your team over there?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great learning tool, obviously playing on many teams and seeing, what you liked. And I think probably the biggest thing that I've learned is no two people are the same, and everyone needs to be managed and dealt with differently. And you need to be able to see and react to, what it is that is required to get the best out of everyone. And obviously, I think, one of the things that I've always been a big believer in, A, through my playing sport days, and B, through work days, that I've had some, great leaders that I've been around that really empower people to, own decisions and make decisions and support them and really, again, give them the resources that are required to help them make those decisions properly and stand behind them as they do that.
Fantastic. It's a pretty cool organization what you guys are developing over there, and really appreciate you jumping on here today to share your story of your NHL career, making that transition into Gradebook, and now the evolution into Delos Canada. And one final question here to wrap up the interview today. With the Stanley Cup playoffs starting this afternoon, who's your money on to take home the hardware this year?
That's a tough question. I still got a few friends that are playing, so I don't know if I can take any sides, but one of the last teams that I did play for and still have a few good friends on are the two-time defending Cup champs, and always hard to bet against them. I don't know if I should be saying that being based here in Toronto, but I think it's always tough to bet against somebody that has that experience and the core of their team together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, looking forward to watching some hockey here today. And Brandon, really appreciate you jumping on with Austin and I today for the video interview here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon.